Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Canadian Football Countdown. Yes, for those wondering who watched my Twitter account today, I still have the keys to the car. This is episode number 165, our Week 9 CFL recap. Welcome to the show. Tonight, we'll talk through all 4 games, or whether it's Horngate, whether it's Saddlegate or Noisegate or everything else in between. Nonetheless, we'll have it all for you here tonight. Along with our usual goodies, a power rankings, player of the week, and maybe a very darn good reason why I'm in the middle of the screen tonight. We'll talk about more about that a little bit later on. This is all made possible thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. For more information, visit facebook.com/Game Time TV. Hi to those of you joining us live. There are some people already joining us live, so thank you. And welcome to those of you joining us on demand via Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and the Game Time TV YouTube page, as well as I've already said, watching on demand. Before I bring in the rest of the panel, I do want to mention that we are a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and are brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Oceanabi, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Without further ado, I'll bring in the rest of the panel. We'll start to my right with the resident expert in our betting picks, so I'm led to believe. More on that later. Good evening, Trey Colbert.
Hey guys, let's talk some football. I'm really excited. We've had a couple good weeks here in the betting pool, so let's keep it going and talk some recap. Fantasy is a different story for me, but we'll talk about that later, right, Ryan?
Yep, and we'll bring in somebody whose quarterback had a great week. The rest of his team, not so much. Sitting to my left, Ryan Coop. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Trey. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. Yes, put Nathan Rourke in the Hall of Fame. Preach it. Once again, you'll hear it probably 10 times on the podcast tonight. What a week for the young Canadian kid it was. What a week of football in general. And quick shout out to all of our listeners over in Thailand. I got an email in my email inbox today of some charts and some stats. Do you know we're the number 8 ranked football podcast in Thailand, guys? So shout out to everybody over in Thailand listening to this podcast. We hear you. We appreciate you. And of course, everybody else as well. Back to you, Mike.
Whoops. Technical difficulties there. Just before we get into the games tonight, I thought I'd switch things up a little bit. Pretty basic question. I had it in my opening already. Which was more impressive to you? Saddlegate, with Farhan Lasry getting his 25 years at TSN and the ensuing Saddles debate that happened? Was it the Noisegate, the Argos being, I guess, questioned or accused of pumping in fake crowd noise? Or was it Horngate, where, quite frankly, on Thursday night, we couldn't hear the game because there was an annoying horn? Which do you find more entertaining as far as it pertains to off the field this week? And we'll start with you, Trey.
Entertaining. I don't know if I would say entertaining, but the one that I think is the biggest crime is Farhan, man. I expect better out of him than those sandals. And what wasn't his? He's celebrating 25 years that night too, or something. So you can't forget the shoes, man. But if it was you know what? Maybe you could forgive Farhan. Other guys you wouldn't be able to forgive. He always rocks what he wears. I don't buy into the Toronto one. I don't know. No. And then the Montreal one, you're in Quebec. Montreal always seems to have that horn. It's not. I'm actually surprised it took us this long to complain about it, Ryan.
Yeah, what a week of weird situations, guys. Full respect to Farhan Lalji. I loved the sandals. I thought he rocked it. You've been there for 25 years. You're a mainstay. You're one of the best reporters out there when it comes to the CFL. You should be able to rock sandals on the sidelines with your suit. I thought he crushed it. Shout out to Farhan Lalji on his 25 years. I'm with Trey. The whole Argos and pumping in noise thing, I don't believe it myself. People a little bit skeptical about the attendance over in Toronto and whether that crowd can make that much noise. I fully believe, yes, they have attendance issues at BMO Field, but the people who go to those games are diehard football fans. They're loud, they're proud for their team, and I really do think that there is no pumped-in crowd noise there. I think we've seen the difference even in a Bomber game where, we saw games where it's, 23, 24,000 people, and it's just as loud sometimes as it is when there's 30,000 there. So I don't know if you can really draw the exact crowd size from the volume you hear. So I guess that leaves Horngate because, I tried to find an air horn around the house to bring here tonight. I don't have one. This episode is 100% certified air horn free, so do not worry. You'll be able to hear us hopefully all night long here. That air horn was even getting on my nerves a little bit there. But what I do appreciate is the troll-like behavior of the Alouettes social media group who are just having a blast with this whole thing. I love it. I think it's fun. I think it's funny watching people get mad about it and them just lean into it. I love when teams go off on social media. Mike?
It's to me it's interesting, right? Because first off, if you worked somewhere for 25 years, I think you deserve to have an intro that's rather unique. So Saturday was kind of perfect there. Still can't really get it out of my head. It's quite hilarious. I had to actually watch it and I had to rewind it just to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing because no offense, Farhan seemed like one of the more serious guys on the panel. Nice to see him come out of his shell a little bit, have some fun, and I think, guys, it rivals Matthew Shinetti's game day chucks pretty darn good. Uh, game day sandals, perhaps.
I like what Chris says in our YouTube chat that Farhan needs advice from Elliot Friedman on shoes and socks.
Well, yeah, I guess, but Friedman also has the hair that is like rivals anybody in the media industry. On a more serious note, a few weeks ago, we have a new partnership, and the partnership's gone really well so far, Ryan.
Yeah, this episode of the podcast is sponsored in part by BetStamp. BetStamp, a free app that helps you find the best odds across different sports books to maximize the value of your online sports betting wagers. You can learn more at betstamp.app. The link is in the episode description. Sign up with referral code CFC. You can track our picks for each CFL game every week over on BetStamp, and we'll get into that a little bit more later in the show, so stay tuned for that.
All right, with the off the field shenanigans part one taken care of, let's turn our attention on the field for once. And there's one unbeaten team who resides in this fair city who had a opportunity to go to 9-0 playing Montreal in Montreal on the road on Thursday Night Football, and they were able to do it, defeating the Montreal Alouettes 35-20. The first thing that comes to mind, guys, and we'll open up the floor here. We'll start with you, Ryan, but I'll give my opening thought quickly, and that is I'm not too sure I want to meet the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in a close game in the fourth quarter ever again.
It's such a weird feeling after the years of turmoil where you went to a game, and I know this was on the road, but you went to a game at IG Field expecting a loss. And now you go into a game and it's tied in the fourth quarter, and it's like, oh, okay, sweet. Let's just go do our thing and wrap it up and go home, because it seems like they find a way in the fourth quarter every time. They played kind of garbage for 3 quarters of that football game and then exploded for 21 points in the fourth. And once they put the pedal to the metal, Montreal just fell apart a little bit there. The Bombers did what they did. They got their lead, and then they shut it down from there. And that's what they do best, Trey.
Boys, we live in an era that none of us have experienced really, but my kids, my 7 and 4-year-old, they truly believe the Bombers don't lose because they've never freaking seen it, especially at IG Field. And if they have, it was cold games that I don't take my kids to, right? And I tell my oldest, I tell my 7-year-old, man, it was the other way. When I was your age, man, I went to a game almost every year on my birthday, and I don't think they won one. It was absolutely horrific. And now we're here where this, teams can't get a win. How would this game have been if Collaros didn't throw 3 interceptions? You know what I mean? This kind of was made. I started feeling like the West Finals last year when I think Collaros had 4 or 5, and then they still ended up winning the game. I don't know if anyone saw my tweet, but I think that was the perfect. If you ever seen The Boys, that's the perfect tweet to compliment that show. Is Collaros is looking around, smiling like we won, But when this team, O'Shea, I think you got to give it a lot to O'Shea and Kyle Walters and even Wade Miller. They built something here that can't seem to be tore down. It's not Gary Stern. It can't tear it down, and BC can't tear it down. Calgary can't tear it down. Let's see if the Rough Riders can in a few weeks. All right, Adam in the chat there. But I don't know what else to say about this team, man. They had terrible out of their 10 games. What, maybe 2 or 3 of them would be great games or good games. At that, they've had 7 mediocre or less games, and they keep winning. And we might turn into the Homer show a little bit on this, but is there really much what's more impressive, that they have bad games but they still win? I almost say that's almost more impressive in a way, right? You can make that argument. Yeah, I'm really horny for the Bombers right now, boys. I can't say anything less about it.
Can I just adjust something very quickly that we kind of talked about here quickly before we go to Montreal? Because I think this is exactly where one of us is going to start on Montreal. The Bombers are not dependent on the officials. I have heard this narrative thrown around about the league hands penalties to Winnipeg. They go out looking for penalties to call against a certain team. Let's be very clear. What was one of O'Shea's mandates the minute he got here? Despite all the winning, all the losing that has gone on of late, discipline. We need to play clean, disciplined football. That's what the Blue Bombers do. They make their opponent take silly penalties, such as pyramiding. Oh my, really? This is the team that is coached how to not take penalties. Everybody should take a lesson in how to play football. I'm not saying that Winnipeg doesn't or doesn't get away with stuff. Everybody does. But I cannot recall the last time I saw an overly stupid penalty taken by the Bombers with the game on the line. It's often the other team taking these pyramiding penalties and these penalties that are, very avoidable, such as putting your hand properly or improperly on a third down. 5 yards is 5 yards. The first down is the first down. Get some luck along the way, but you got to be good to be lucky. And I think I don't know how to describe Montreal because I'm getting tired of it every week because it's one good game, one bad game. Sure. The Achilles heel of why we were led to believe that a coach was being fired. Usually when you fire a coach, it's because you want to rectify a problem, not make it worse. Penalties, as far as I'm concerned, gentlemen, still a problem for the Montreal Alouettes. Certainly a problem when you play the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the scary part for the CFL, not just Montreal, it's when the Bombers start finding those good games on a consistent basis. For Montreal, I don't know what to make of this. You it's like you hang around with a team for 45 minutes, and then you can't do it. You fold the tent, you go home. I don't know. I listen. I don't want to be critical of Montreal this week because they played a really, really good 45 minutes. But the most important 15 minutes they seem to have forgotten about, which is the end in a close game. So I don't know what to make of Montreal because Winnipeg has just done this to everybody. But I'm not liking their prospects of a rematch, victory taking penalties the way they did. Um, Trey, your thoughts on Montreal, where they go from here? To me, Trey, it's just the penalties. You fired a coach over so-called penalties, and it doesn't seem to be getting better in my mind.
No, I agree. It comes down to that. And yeah, I don't think we all talked about this. It wasn't coaching in Montreal that was the issue. There was a lot more to it. And sorry, I was just looking here because I think I mentioned it to you guys. The line wasn't that bad this past week, but look, upcoming, the line opened up at double digits for the Bombers. And you usually don't see that in a back-to-back, right? You usually see the line get closer. Teams should know each other. But Bombers got some players coming back, it looked like today in practice. Let's see. It's minus 12.5 or plus 13.5 is the best for Montreal as of today. But we'll talk more Wednesday on that. Montreal, I don't know what their issue. They kept the game close. They were only 7-3 at halftime. I was scratching my head looking at that, and then the Bombers just took off. What was like a punt return, and everything just deflated Montreal in the fourth. They were still, they were winning at the end of the third, right? Or close, right? So it's just those deflating moments, and penalties add to that, and a punt return adds to that, and some interceptions add to that. And I think the main thing is Winnipeg didn't get deflated when they had their turnovers, right? They know how to win, and Montreal just doesn't quite know how to do that. And unfortunately, fortunately for Montreal, no team in the East knows how to win right now. So Montreal could still win the division. Hamilton and Toronto are going to beat up on each other 3 more times over the next 4 weeks. Ottawa's the dumpster fire there. Every team seems to just, be giving each other a chance to win. So, it's not doom and gloom in Montrealville and Gary World, but because again, 2 teams of these 4 have to make the playoffs, unfortunately, and Montreal could find a way, right, Ryan?
Yeah, for me, it's with Montreal, there's just no flash. There's no spark there right now this season for them. I don't see a consistent effort across the board. I don't see a ton of efforts that jump out to me. I mean, you look at their wide receiver numbers this week. Eugene Lewis, 9 catches, 15 targets for 123 yards. Their next highest receiver was Reggie White Jr. at 2 catches for 33. It was the Eugene Lewis show. It seemed they couldn't get things going offensively, so they went over and over to the same guy again, and that seems to be the case regularly with them. And in years past, Jake Wieneke was the second go-to guy there, but once again, only 17 yards for him. I will say Tyson Philpott was probably the brightest star for Montreal in this one to me. He did catch a touchdown pass. He had a long return. I've touched on the depth I need to see. I would like to see more of from the Alouettes at wide receiver. I think Philpott could be a star in this league, and I think he's going to be a star in this league, and I'm excited to see him grow. But when you're not really getting things going too much offensively, when it seems like nothing's going well, and you're going to Eugene Lewis over and over again, that seems like kind of the desperation move in that one. And Trevor Harris picking his guy and sticking with it. And yeah, they moved down the field a little bit, but nothing too spectacularly. We did end up getting Dominic Davison yet at the end of the game on this one as well. So yeah, I think Montreal is going to be in tough here on the back-to-back. Generally I like to pick the teams to split in this one, but now you got to go into Winnipeg to try to turn this around. We know that's no easy task there. So
I know I'm not going to be on the show on Wednesday, but I do have some concerns with this matchup. That is the Blue Bombers looking ahead to their bye week next week. I'm a little bit interested about that mindset. Knowing O'Shea, he probably won't let them get there. The other thing I wanted to talk about and was brought up in the comments. David Cote hits the crossbar at 14 apiece in the fourth quarter. How that changes the game. Um, but to me, guys, like we can flatter about Montreal's 20 points all we want, but a lot of it was, and I hate to be, and people are going to accuse me of being a homer, and that's perfectly fine. Some of those points were self inflicted special teams mistakes by the Blue Bombers, where if they made a couple tackles, Montreal doesn't have the near field position, but they do on a lot of that. That being said, the one thing I will say about this game yet is it's a rare feat in the Canadian Football League to have all three phases of your game, special teams, offense, and defense, contribute the way the Bombers did in the fourth quarter. It was the Janarian Grant punt return, the defensive short field, and the offense managing to find a way to win. That being said, guys, really quickly on Montreal, how do you approach this one? Because I mean, early reports, at least yesterday, I saw, and I didn't see any reports today. It looked like, at least to an extent, Dominic Davis was taking the first team reps. I'm not sure what the latest report was today. And I'm wondering if that might have something to do with those lines being a little bit lopsided, perhaps with some of the injury concerns uh, from Montreal's standpoint. But it's interesting, and if I may have one positive thing here just on the way out, I didn't pick him as my player of the week, but I gave him strong consideration. That returner slash receiver Phil Pot, he's going to be a big problem given some more rope on this team to catch and run the ball. He is going to be a nightmare for years to come, and he's not your prototypical rookie returner. Um, you know, usually it's where do we run on the kickoff and punt returns? No, this guy runs straight down the field. He runs hard. He runs fast. He's not your typical, and we've seen this from young receivers. You know, they're not sure where to go. Hello, Charles Nell or hello Nelson from Edmonton. um, we'll get to that in a second, but yeah, it's the pieces are there, but it's they cannot put it together with any consistency. And the scary part is, I still think this team could be the best team in the East, despite where they sit right now. But go ahead.
Quick note, Tim from the Alouettes flight deck is in our YouTube chat. Hi, Tim. Says Trevor Harris was a full participant today. So
Okay, that's good.
missed practice yesterday, but it looks like he'll be starting Thursday
That's
night.
good. I read a lot of information. I can't remember if it's the same day or the day before. So thank you, Tim, for following up. By the way, love your podcast. Keep it up. Let's move to our next game.
Can I make a quick point? Just one quick point. Quick point. Isn't the Montreal Philpott, wasn't he supposed to be the less good of the two? You know what I mean? Like, so if we're seeing him go off like this, isn't his twin supposed to be better and went earlier? Or am I mixing them up? Yeah, you know what I mean?
I think Jalen did go earlier in the draft. I'll double check on that one, but he's made some good plays so far this season too. I think both are going to be stars in this league.
Yeah, I'm not trying to crap on either. I'm saying they're both going to be unreal. If the one who went later is being unreal, I don't think the other one's gotten quite same chance in Calgary yet. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to be remembering Thank you, Chris. I'm always right. You don't need to tell me in the group chat, but we're in the chat. But thank you.
You know what, guys? I'm not even joking when I say this. Those two remind me of the NHL's version of Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Just give it a couple years, except we're on two different teams. Poor parents. The good news is they could potentially meet in the Grey Cup against one another. Then what? Well,
not likely. 10-0 Bombers in the way? Nah.
Excuse me. The Grey Cup is still coming to the family home. Just, one conversation didn't go better than the other. Meanwhile, his brother was in action in this game with a 17-3 Stampeder victory over the Red Blacks. And guys, I may have said this, and I watched it at the cabin, and I was on holidays, and I couldn't help but turn the TV on. But guys, I couldn't tell if this was a watchable game or just much of a beautiful mess. So, Ryan, help me sort through this. Calgary, not impressive. Ottawa, leaves a lot to be desired. Are you surprised, and did you suspect Calgary maybe played down to the level of their opponent a little bit, except for a certain individual?
Well, this was the worst game of the season thus far across the board, I think. I watched the majority of this game, and there was very little exciting about it. It was a game with some good fantasy potential as well that just crapped on everybody's weeks, regardless of which quarterback you took from this game. When your winning quarterback in the game is Bo Levi Mitchell at 48.1% completion percentage for 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. I had high hopes. I was pumped for this game. I did pick Ottawa to win this one. Yeah, that was a disaster. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. But, they just came out flat. They got nothing going. This was not the Caleb Evans we were used to seeing the past couple of weeks, who actually was performing pretty well. He seemed a little bit like last year's Caleb Evans. They didn't get him running the ball. He only had 2 carries for 6 yards. He couldn't get the passing game going, a couple fumbles, a couple interceptions. Felt like his offensive line was struggling. The Stampeders' defense was on him all night long, and they forced some turnovers. Titus Wall, a great rookie over in Calgary, picked up 2 interceptions on this one. I think one went back for a touchdown. And, well, the rookie, I think he's a rookie, Dedrick Mills, stepping up at running back. You point to those 2 guys as pretty much the 2 major reasons Calgary pulled out the win like they did in this game. But it was an ugly one across the board, wasn't it, Trey?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the whole game. What was it, 3 field goals, a touchdown, and a rouge? Bo Levi couldn't even get a touchdown. Calgary's running back, who had a great game, didn't even get a touchdown, right? It was insane, It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Blue Bombers, a little bit, kind of that game where Claros had 7 completions, a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit more of a dumpster fire than that one was, but that same kind of thing. I'm going to say it was Calgary playing down. I never had a doubt that Calgary wasn't going to win this game. I wasn't in doubt they were going to win by the 5.5 or whatever it was. No doubt Bo Levi's going to shut us all up. He said, wow, Trey's on my team, but Ryan isn't, so we have to win this game somehow, right? So that's what Bo does, and I'm going to stop betting against Bo unless they're playing the Bombers or maybe the Lions. You know what? I really want to talk about Wednesdays, when the Wednesday show, BC and Calgary. That's going to be a game. And, we want to talk about Rourke in the Hall of Fame, and we want to talk about what's going on. Is Bo the old Bo, or is he old folks Bo? I think we'll find out next week, right, in that game. But for this one, yeah, I don't know what to do. I think the big question is, are we going to say, I think we were talking about this in our group chat. We should honestly just make that live to the public so people always know what we're talking about. But is it Ottawa's personnel or is it coaching, guys? Is it a little bit of both? What do you guys think? Let's go to Mike. Mike, what do you think? Is it coaching or personnel?
I'll jump in here, and I am very. I got to be careful because I said one thing on with the day after the game, and after more thought, I've kind of had a different realization. Um, I would be careful how I phrase this because we've seen, um, we've seen really good coordinators have really, really good careers and have number one offenses and number two offenses and be there for, you know, head coaching positions. And then these guys become head coach and it's a completely different animal. Um, that being said, I don't know what to make of Ottawa just because they haven't really had a quarterback. No offense to Caleb Evans, who what I would consider to be upper echelon. I think we're having a completely different scenario with Jeremiah Mazzoli at quarterback. Um, and I'm looking at the CFL panel with a lot of egg on their face because if you watched, the pregame show and the first half, all of this discussion was about Caleb Evans has turned the corner, Caleb Evans has turned the corner, and then he just completely face plants. Um, there's no other way to say it. The one thing I am curious about with LaPolice, he gave Caleb Evans an awfully long leash for a game that was very winnable for the longest time. No offense to what Calgary did. Um, I think you have a completely different discussion if midway through the first quarter or second quarter you realize your guy doesn't have it and you make that change a little bit earlier because we saw Ottawa have some chances late with Arbuckle and he really had to force the issue with a couple turnovers. Now, whether it's a, you know, personnel issue, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. I said that Lapoli should not be fired this year. I agree with that in season. However, if things keep going like this toward the end of November or early November, I don't know if you have a choice but to move on. Because 1 year is okay. Second year with supposed free agent overhaul, and it's still not working. Guys, the play calling to me was not very good. I was surprised. We've seen play calling from La Police that's much more exotic. The the handoffs, the behind the back, the trickery. There is no confidence in that offense right now to run anything like that. The personnel is it La Police? I'm not sure. I know I probably had a long rant but went nowhere. Maybe I'm just confused. Like, what is Ottawa? I had high expectations for them. They're quickly becoming a very, very big disappointment. And maybe this is the appropriate place for sad music.
Well, I'll just jump in here on this as well. We got this question also about how long does Sean Burke keep Lapo around on Twitter from Scott Westman. And, I said it all along. I think I've been saying, maybe give him the season, you give him time, a whole new roster, give them time to gel. I'm actually starting to change my mind. And I feel like this is, if you're going to do something, this is the week to do it. They're on a bye week right now. You're still very much in the thick of things in the East Division. Like, Paul Lapolice, we've all said it all season long, doesn't have a great track record as a head coach. So then you start asking, do you think it's going to get better this season? And I don't know if it's going to. I'm now leaning towards the camp of, unfortunately, it's time to let him go. Now you have to manage the coach's cap here as well, which gets more tricky. So you're probably looking at an internal hire, maybe a Bob Dice taking over the head coaching role if it is. But, You mentioned the play calling. Like, I think it was 4 seconds left before the first half ended, and they decided to punt the ball for some reason to Peyton Logan, on the other hand. Like, why are you not just running out the clock in situations like that? You mentioned the offensive game plan just hasn't been ticking properly there so far. I think Ottawa has all of the talent to succeed, and I think they have all of the talent to succeed, especially in the East Division this year. I like what they have at quarterback. They have William Powell, great running back if they use them properly. They have a good set of receivers. They have some playmakers on defense as well, and they have a good offensive line. So I think the talent is there. I think it's being underutilized. Is it chemistry that's a problem? Still building throughout the season. I guess we will see. Is it coaching? I don't know, but maybe now's the chance to make a change. And, like we've got Toronto and Hamilton going head to head week after week after week after week after how many more do I have to say here? In the next little while, there's potential to move up the standings. So take your chance now, Ottawa, because I don't know how much better it's going to get if you stay the status quo coming out of the bye week.
No, I agree. And I think can you give Hamilton a second round draft pick for Kari Jones? Like, is that allowed in CABA? Because you got to do something. And then after the bye, they have a back to back against Edmonton. And if there's one team in the West you want to face in a back to back right now, other than Saskatchewan, it's probably Edmonton, right? So you need to get something going. And yeah, I had Ottawa doing the impossible and crossing over preseason. So how do you think I feel right now? I don't even know what to talk about the East anymore, but I don't know. I think we were talking about the play calling. Well, I think Lappel got too spoiled with the talent he had in Winnipeg a little bit, right? Where he could do a lot of those misdirections, and you had guys like Harris and Dembski and Lawler and, all guys like that who are, amazing athletes. And I'm not saying that, again, we're the three guys on a podcast. Everyone on Ottawa, could bench press us combined probably, but they're not the same talent that Lappel has had in Winnipeg. And I want to see more out of Ottawa. I want to see more out of the East. So, I don't know what you can do. That's stupid. We can have a whole show on this. I don't like the salary cap for coaching either, because it puts you in a bind right now where you're kind of forced to stick with a direction, where usually coaching is the one thing teams can pay their way out of, right? If you can't with player personnel. But I don't know. Something's got to change. But like we said, they're still one game out of a playoff spot? Yeah, one game out of a playoff spot. So is it really that bad? Mike?
Yeah, the other thing I find really interesting, and I had this comparison thrown to me to somebody, but I was talking to, it wasn't on social media, but just in a general conversation, and he floated me the question, how close on a fair of a comparison is it to compare the Ottawa Redblacks season to the Winnipeg Jets season this past year? And hysterically, I started exactly what Trey was doing. And, well, it was explained to me like this. All the talent in the world, supposedly, Wheeler, Connor, Shifley, Ehlers, Hellebuck, and if you make the suggestion that, Ottawa has all this world-class talent, is it also a possibility that this talent, or too much of this talent, is underperforming at the same time? That was generally the point that was made and why the comparison was made. You guys are laughing at me.
No, that's a good comparison, and
some explanation would be required, please, because I'm curious.
Well, I'm laughing because if we want to talk about dumpster fires, I could have a 3-hour show on the Winnipeg Jets, man. Like, I think the Eastern Division is less of a dumpster fire than the Winnipeg Jets, but maybe you could bring me on your hockey show in the fall and we could talk about that. But I want to compare, I think it's Ottawa mixed with Montreal, because also Montreal fired a coach saying we need to fire a coach to get things going, and the Jets did that, or he resigned, whatever. And guess what? Nothing changed in Winnipeg, right? So and that's why I'm laughing, because, it's great that you can compare the Winnipeg Jets to what's going on in the East Division right now. That's a perfect analogy everywhere, and I don't know if I want to say Ottawa's got the same, level of comparison of talent as the Jets, but I do like that comparison, Ryan.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting comparison as well. It's been well documented, the struggle of the Winnipeg Jets, and I see a lot of the same things you guys mentioned there. And well, hopefully Ottawa can turn this around. Do we want to do what the hockey news did and project Ottawa Red Blacks Grey Cup champs like what 3-4 years from now, and see if that comes true? I think it's more likely for a CFL prediction than a hockey prediction, but. Yeah, step forward last week for Ottawa, step back again this week for them, and coming out of the bye week, no idea what to expect.
Well, guys, I think we're going to get a clear indication of these next two games against Edmonton because they're both big games for both teams. I'll make it a bold prediction right here, right now, even though it might not be that bold, because one of the teams is pretty much out of it. But whoever loses, if somebody loses that back to back, they're done. Like Edmonton, they have a chance because Saskatchewan is limping around right now, for lack of a better term. Sorry, Adam. I know I probably hurt your feelings and you're crying in the corner, but we can deal with that some other time. But in fairness, here, like Edmonton has a chance to make the playoffs. Ottawa has a chance to make the playoffs. Both these teams should be looking at the game the exact same way, in that we have a chance to pull off a 2-game win streak. Unless you're Victor Cruy and he says we're going to have a 4-game win streak and his team completely turtles in the first game. I like the confidence. Congrats on owners that like to make proclamations. I just love it. But somebody's going to be disappointed in this 2-game series. Somebody's going to use this as a springboard. More likely, it's just going to be a split. Battle of Ontario, round 1 of infinite, I guess, in the next 5 weeks. 4 of the next 5 weeks, these two teams will meet. My opening thought is, will anybody be around by game 4? Or will they be calling in practice roster players to take the spot of injured players? Because to me, the story of this game was the physicality and the violence in this game, and it was going both ways. Both teams were losing players. Braylon Addison, the running back Sean Thomas Erlington took a couple big hits. We saw some kind of a running game from Hamilton, which was nice to see. But Chris Edwards had other ideas in the fourth quarter and ran back to pick 6. Guys, if the first game is any indication of these 4 out of the next 5 that these two teams play, 4 out of the next 5 weeks, is this television appointment viewing for both of you, Ryan?
Well, I've been pretty sour on the weird schedule here of 4 times in 5 weeks between these two teams because it seems excessive in a 9-team league to go and do that. I guess it would seem more excessive in like a 30-team league, to be fair. But I don't know. Now part of me kind of turns around on it. I forget who the comment was from, but I really liked a comment I saw on Twitter that was like, if we want to go back to the hockey analogies here, we got a darn good Stanley Cup playoff rivalry going on. 4 straight games here between these two teams. I know there's a bye week in the middle, but we're going to see a lot of gamesmanship where we have already seen two teams that hate each other. So, yeah, this could get a little bit ugly, and that may make it either very interesting viewership or something I may not want to view. We'll see, depending what direction that goes. But I think it's going to be interesting to see two teams that clearly hate each other, division rivals, the chance if you can take 3 out of 4 of these to break yourself wide open out there in the East Division. I think we're going to see a lot here from these two clubs in the next couple of weeks. So I don't know. I'm turning around. I'm kind of excited to tune in and see how this bounces back week after week. Might be a little tough to come up with new storylines to talk about on our preview show for each of them, but I think the games themselves are going to give us a ton to recap here each of these weeks, as this one did. Trey?
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I like your analogy, or I was even thinking like a 4-game weekend series in baseball, right? You're going to see it, the same team Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're going to be sick of each other. But, that's CFL football right now until we get that Schooners team in there or whatever team ends up coming. But, we can all complain about scheduling. We all know how difficult it can be with 9 teams. I'm not good at math, but I don't think 9's divisible by 2. So, weird things can happen. The game itself, though, was not bad. Again, it was one of those games that, Toronto was down at half. What did I say? Almost every game this week was kind of a snoozer till half, and then everything comes alive. And who would have thought that Toronto would miss another couple kick, or was it an extra point, and then they still end up winning? I don't know what to think about the East, but we said Toronto, these guys see each other three times over the next 4 weeks, and one of them sees Calgary. I think it was Toronto. It's a lot of games in there that, if Toronto can go 4-0 in that's huge. And now Hamilton's thinking at least to go 2-2, if not 3-1 in the series, right? So, and this could be the tiebreak, right? Who hosts the game in November, right? It could be the tiebreak scenario. So, it's more than just a couple of wins in the series. It could be the difference between 7,000 people at BMO Field or a sold-out Ivor Wind in November, right, guys? So it's, I guess BMO would probably still be sold out with the Tiger Cat fans coming down around the lake, but it could be a big change, right, Mike?
Hang on, I gotta give you credit here, Trey, because at halftime of this football game, you were the one who went out and said that a big Argos second half comeback was coming, and it sure darn did. So kudos to you on this one. Mike?
What else was I supposed to say? I picked them in my point spread. Was I supposed to say they're going to roll over and die? No.
What was that? And I'm curious now. Did you see something in the game that prompted you to say that, or was that just an off the wall comment?
I have
to say that for betting purposes.
No, for betting purposes, my girlfriend likes to say I have a horseshoe up my ass. Like, that's my betting thing, where I just always somehow come out on top. I've never went 13-3 in my life, but I join a podcast and say I'm a betting expert. Now I go 13-3, right? I've never had perfect weekends in CFL, NFL, any kind of football, and I've had 2 or 3 now, right? It's just how I have confidence. I don't know where it comes from, but I just ooze confidence and cockiness. And I said, you know what? No, Toronto's not going to lose this game because I picked them to win. That's all it was, Mike. That's all it was.
Okay, so let's talk about this quickly in a couple parts. Yes, no, rapid fire from both of you, so you can turn your microphones on if you want, because all of these are basically rapid. Are we concerned about Hamilton based on what we saw this week, Ryan?
I'm concerned they're not going to be able to field a roster next week, yeah? With all the injuries.
Trey?
No, because the East is not, like, they're still going to be second probably, so no.
How much are we talking about the loss of Braylon Addison as being important? Either one of you can take this one.
It's key. And because he is one of their go-to receivers, but he also missed most of last season, and that's where we saw Stephen Dunbar, that's where we saw Tim White, guys like that step up in that offense. So, yeah, it's a loss. I'm not going to deny Braylon Addison has huge impact in that offense, but I think they've got other guys in that receiving core that can step up big time here.
Again, we don't know his status, but it appears Andrew Harris may have hurt his hand at the tail end of the game. Trey, how much of a concern would that be for Toronto?
I'm going to say not too much because I don't go to him enough or more. And this is all joke, but he'll just do another shot of whatever came up in that test a few years ago, and he'll be fine, right?
True that. Although I don't advocate for anybody else to do that. That was
no. It's all, I'm not too concerned. Like I said, when it comes to Toronto, they need Harrison, Banks, and guys like that for November, right? It's they're going to eke out wins, and Hamilton's got a lot of Band-Aids too. So, it's the next man up. We see it in Winnipeg. We see it in a lot of the West teams. Someone gets hurt, next guy up. No concern.
Last thing, guys, that win meant a lot to one Brandon Banks. If you looked at his Twitter account after the game, he was fairly motivated. Everybody was expecting the game of the week. at the Lions Den. Well, enter the Lions Den and get mauled was what happened to the Edmonton Elks. Maybe should have seen this coming because I seem to have forgotten about the week 1 matchup between the two teams. 2 turnovers for Edmonton early on, and then the Nathan Rourke, Dominic Grimes, Nathan Rourke, whatever wide receiver you want to put here, Lucky Whitehead, Brian Burnham, Katoy. That's a lot of toys to play with. That's like picking, standing back and going, which one do I want today? Well, Nathan Wirtz, Hall of Fame campaign manager, is likely sitting to my left. So I'm going to let him break down this Dungeon-esque performance, at least for the first half, from Nathan Wirtz.
Yeah, we're talking about one of the most accurate passing games in CFL history, and I'm talking about punter Stephen Flintoff going 1 for 1 for 1 yard for the BC Lions. No, of course, well, technically he was more accurate. Nathan Rourke, 34 of 37. Are you kidding me? 477 yards. Are you serious? And yeah, 5 touchdowns. Forgot to mention that part. This is insane. I've been saying this whole Hall of Fame thing as a complete joke every week. And it's still a joke, right? Like, that's not happening until way in the future. But, I mean, if he keeps pulling this off, either A, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, or B, this is his last year in the CFL because he's going down south to the NFL. Like, Nathan Rourke is the story. Like, he is the story of the CFL this season. I think there's no doubt about it. Go back to everything I said about the Lions preseason and the offseason, that this is either they're going to go on to win the Grey Cup this year, or this is going to blow up miserably in their faces. But I loved the move. I loved taking a chance on it, and it's working wonderfully for them. And it's so exciting, though, just see it. Like, I don't think we've seen talent come out of nowhere like this in the CFL, at least in my lifetime. And he's only 9 games. This was his 9th start in the CFL, which is absurd. He clearly loves playing the Elks. I think he has 16 touchdowns against them in 3 games in his career, both passing and rushing. And it kind of got to a point where the game was getting out of hand, and then it led us to the conversation of why the heck is he still out there playing? I think they could have pulled Rourke and probably should have pulled him at halftime in this game. They're darn lucky he didn't get injured late in this one. Trey, what do you make of this?
Oh, I had a thought. Where did it go? Oh, yeah, they scored no points in the 4th, and they still scored 46 points in the game. Like, what is that? And they only scored 9 in the 3rd quarter. You know, that's unreal. Again, it was another game that was close at the end of the 1st quarter, only 14-7. And yes, Chris, in the chat, I do remember you saying they'd win by 30. And I don't believe I said anything to it, but the only reason I didn't think they would is because I thought they'd pull their quarterback when they're up by 25 points, and then they would never score another point. But, you know, at the same time, what is he, 24? Yeah, you don't want to risk anything, but I did like what the coach said. He's 24. He needs reps too. I understand that. And, you know, after that, were they just handing it off in quick passes? You know, they weren't doing anything where he's standing in the pocket for 3, 4, 5 seconds. He wasn't running it himself, other than he does the short yardage, I think, doesn't he? So he was out there. Oh, no, he doesn't? Oh, does he? Okay, does he? Okay. Because he was out there for that, and I was like, ooh, maybe not that, because, you know, we saw Deron Carter put a shoulder down, and, you know, I'm not saying anyone on Edmonton's dirty, but it is football. You know, if you played football and you get in one of those pileups, guys grab ankles on purpose or by accident, guys grab things. It you know what happens. It's football. So, you know, it's a very interesting choice. But I want to talk about Edmonton. We were talking about this a little earlier. Edmonton's interesting. So they play Saskatchewan this week. And then they play back-to-back against Ottawa. And over that time, Saskatchewan plays, who did I see here? Back-to-back against BC and a back-to-back against Winnipeg. So this is Edmonton's chance, right? If they can win, somehow blow up Saskatchewan and somehow, you know, even win one against Ottawa, Saskatchewan, you're telling me Saskatchewan's going to win how many games against BC and Winnipeg over the next 4 weeks? And I'm not trying to be down on Saskatchewan, but let's be real: a 4-4 team against a 8-0 or 9-0 and a 7-1. This is Edmonton's shot, so they got to get something going over the next few weeks, and I'm going to be interested in that because, oh boy, I don't want to be Adam in Ryderville if Edmonton passes them somehow. But but all aboard the Rourke train. And if you don't believe he's going south of the border next year, you're one of those CFL fans that look down at the NFL too much. He's gonna. This is the guy where you need to get some, Tampa Bay cap maneuvering going or something here, because you got to keep him in the league. Ambrosi himself should pay him $5 million a year to stay up here, right? Or the league needs to do something. You go get him a deal with old Dutch chips and put him on every bag, or put him on CFL Madden when it comes out, and give him some sponsorship deals to keep him up here, because, ooh man, he could get 3, 4, 5 million holding a clipboard from September to February for some team, and that's enticing. Yes, he looks like a guy who wants to play. Yeah, he doesn't have social media. He keeps doing the right things and the right things and the right things. But you tell anyone, any football player, would you want to play for the BC Lions or New England Patriots or Detroit Lions or Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders? Think they're going to take the team south of the 49 parallel 99 out of 100. So, yeah, this guy, you got to lock him up somehow.
But isn't this the whole reason you should be resting him earlier in the game and going out to, put Michael O'Connor in there as your backup, is because it's very obvious that Nathan Rourke is likely has a shot to go south next year, and you're going to need a quarterback, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know, guys. To me, the CFL for once has a poster boy. Not to take anything away from anybody else that has been that marketing guy, kind of like Shohei Ohtani does in LA. Guys, this is a poster boy written all over it, and the CFL is about to realize one of its big problems, and that is retaining talent. And I like what Chris said about taking Nathan Rourke over Drew Lock in Seattle. I could subscribe to that theory as well. The other thing, guys, this is getting publicity in the States for the CFL. I heard an interview, I think it was Nathan Rourke with his college football network there at Ohio, talking about the game after the game. This is not just a Canadian story here. I saw it on some American sites about, hey, did you see what that guy that used to go to Ohio University did? 34 out of 37 and accuracy and slinging the ball around like he's playing catch in the yard. Well, not quite like that, but it made the world take notice, and the CFL needs to find a way to keep him here. And I think it was Travis said this a couple weeks ago. There needs to be that one player that you're allowed to circumvent the cap for. If there wasn't ever a case for it, it's right now. Guys, I am so excited for your show on Wednesday because I want to hear what you have to say about Calgary and BC. But as I'll warn you before, we've had a lot of games with a lot of good records, and they turned out to be pretty dull. And Bo Levi better be on his game because Rourke is going to come and throw the ball around the yard. And if he can't keep up, that game will be over before it starts.
Well, if I could just jump in, I'm looking at lines right now, and on BetStamp, our new sponsor, they have different odds that have both team favored between Calgary and BC. There's some that have BC by 0.5 and Calgary by 0.5, and some have BC by 1. So it's even the odd makers can't agree. Usually you don't see that. Usually you have a little point difference, but yeah, they're jumping back and forth between who's going to win that game next week. But talk about Nathan Rourke. Even we just stop it. Forget about the Canadian thing. How often has a 24-year-old come in and blown up like this? And then you have the Canadian thing on top of that, right? So this is a huge marketing chip. And like I said, if you can't keep this, like, it's one thing if BC loses them to another team in the CFL. Like, yeah, the Lions fans, I'd be mad. But as a league, I would be shooting ourselves in the foot if we lost them. And, oh, please don't lose them to the XFL or something like that. Because that's a league, too, that maybe will, say screw the salary cap to get a guy in like Nathan Rourke or a talent like that, too, right? So, if you're losing them, it better be to the NFL. You'd better not be losing them to the XFL and the Rock there. That would be catastrophic. But, Mike, tune in. I don't even know who I'm going to pick in that game right now. So, a lot of meditation, for the next few days. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I know which way I'm leaning in that game, but I'm very excited to see how that one plays out. And you can't just talk about Rourke as the only guy when they win 46-14 in a football game, right? Like, James Butler actually had a pretty quiet day rushing. It was all passing game here. Dominic Rhymes with 3 touchdowns. Like, Rhymes is having a heck of a season. He leads the league in touchdowns now at this point. Burnham back in the lineup. That's huge for BC. Like, defensively, they did a ton of amazing things in this game, like a bunch of sacks on the board, a couple interceptions, forced fumble. Like, across the board, this was a beatdown. And yeah, Nathan Rourke is the flashy story out of all of it, but this is a very, very good BC Lions team thus far this season. And, we'll get into this more as the weeks go along, but I think a lot of us have been saying that Winnipeg is going to be in a position to rest players in the final couple of weeks because they're going to be so far ahead of the standings that they're going to have first place wrapped up by then. I'll make the claim right now. I think the final 2 weeks of the season are going to decide first place in the West between Winnipeg and BC when they play head-to-head. I expect this to be a Lions team that wins the majority of their games this season. I don't think this is slowing down anytime soon. Will they hit a dud game here and there? Yeah, everybody pretty much does along the way. But the more than not, this is a good football team across the board. They did great things this offseason, and they're coming out here to deliver.
I have a question then. Sorry, did you say those last 2 games would determine first place?
Yes.
Then why would Winnipeg rest their starters?
Oh, exactly. I don't think they will be. That's
sorry,
what I'm saying.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I misheard you. I thought you said you were going to rest. I'm like, if it's for first, they better not be. If I'm going to that game in BC and Claris is on the bench and they give up first, that, you want to piss off 30,000 Winnipeg fans. That's how to do it. So I misheard you. There we go.
Yeah, no, I do not think, I think a lot of people are expecting the Bombers to rest people in those final couple of weeks, but I don't think we get there because I think BC is going to be right up there with them in the standings.
Guys, I think, to be honest, too, the Bombers' rest, quote-unquote, is built into their schedule. They basically overcame the worst of their schedule this week. No offense to anybody else. 6 of the 9 games remaining are at home. 3 byes thrown in there. So, potentially working your way to a 4th bye right now.
And a fun doubleheader with BC to end the season. I'm so excited for that. I hope that those are games where both teams start their players.
Ryan, and I hate to disagree with you to an extent, but I'm going to kind of have to. I cannot see what I think is more likely to happen is Winnipeg falls back to the pack, which I think makes those last 2 games against BC interesting. Personal preferences, I cannot see BC winning sustainably to keep up and make those first place games meaningful. The thing that I think is playing in BC's mind right now is those 3 games, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. Those are going to mean absolutely everything for the people to the west of us. Maybe not so much other than pride for the Blue Bombers. Let's paint a scenario where Saskatchewan wins 2 of those 3 against Winnipeg. Do I see that happening? Probably not, but it's a rivalry, and we've seen what 500 in one half of the rivalry does, and a team that's in first place does with those types of games. The door is open for BC to get into this race for first place, but it's not necessarily them winning out the rest of the way. There's a chance here for Winnipeg to fall back to the pack. The way it's set up right now, BC's 6-1 and Winnipeg is 9-0. That's an awful lot of pressure to win those games in hand. We'll see.
Could
But
you imagine 16-0 Bombers versus the 15-1 BC Lions in like week 18, 19, 20 there? That would be unreal. And that would be the only way Winnipeg has a shot of going undefeated, because you'd have to start your starters. Like, could you imagine? And that would be the biggest thing to be like one division, right? You can't have a BC team go almost undefeated and finish second.
Yeah, and then you have that debate of, let's say, 15-3, 14-4 West final. Now you're going to have people really up in arms, because on the other side, that's probably not a matchup that can, live up to the light of day, and that might be the Grey Cup in the conference finals. And if I'm Winnipeg, I want that game at home, not the least of which being the weather. But, again, time will tell.
That brings up an interesting point I just want to bring up. Have we seen Nathan Rourke play in the cold? Because, he's got a stadium, and Ohio isn't the coldest place in the world. So I wonder what happens there in, October, November in Winnipeg/Saskatchewan, right? That's interesting.
8 touchdowns.
That would be a thing. But you know what I mean? He could be a perfect player, but then, you take away the pass game in the cold. And yes, they have a run game. Yeah, they have a huge run game. And he runs, but, slippery, watch him twist something, that cold in Winnipeg in November and October could be interesting for him.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ryan. I'll let you jump in here in 1 second. I just wanna bring something up as well. I have concerns with Saskatchewan based on the schedule, and it's not because I'm a Rider. I'm supposed to hate the Riders because I'm a Bomber fan. Realistically, 2 left with BC, 3 left with Winnipeg. If you go 1-4 in that scenario, you might be turning out the lights on your playoffs in the West for sure, but in the East, you might have yourself a chance. The other thing that I would kind of want to consider here is people in Riderville are up in arms about the last 3 games in particular. No better way to shut the critics than go on a dead run against BC and Winnipeg. So that's kind of the two-edged sword here. I have thoughts on Edmonton, but I'll let Ryan jump in here for a minute.
Yeah, I want to talk about Edmonton more here as well. So I'll go over there because that's who the Riders play next week, I believe it is, right? So it kind of ties into what you were mentioning there. Edmonton. Every time you think they take a step forward, they play BC. It seems, right? Like they can just not play a consistent game against BC. It seems maybe Chris Jones's defense is getting it together, and then they deliver this performance. And when Chris Jones originally signed a 4-year contract and say he was going to stick around for the 4 years, I think he was ready to leave at halftime, pack it up, and go home. You could tell Jones was not happy the entire night long. I'm sure we're going to see, we saw a number of cuts during the bye week. I'm sure we're going to see a number more this week. I wouldn't feel comfortable or secure in my job there if I'm anybody on the Elks right now, based on the way they've played the past couple of weeks. And it just seemed like nothing going right. This game was out of hand pretty quickly into the second quarter. And the offense, didn't get a whole lot going. The defense couldn't make a stop no matter what. And it just tailed into the second half, and it looked like there was no effort all the way around in this one. So I don't know if there's too much. I don't know if Elks fans even want us to talk about how their team did in this game, to be honest, because there's not all. I'm sorry to say, I don't have a highlight of this game for the Elks here at all. Like, maybe it's that Darrell Walker seemed to have a good game coming back from injury, but Taylor Cornelius was the leading rusher with 13 yards. Nobody really had a fantastic outing. It was a rough game for Edmonton, and the door was open for them to have a chance to get back into it in the West after Saskatchewan's last 3 losses, and well, they dropped this dud.
The highlight for me, guys, and I think this should serve a memorandum for Chris Jones, constantly changing the back end of your defense game in and game out doesn't help. He's had so many different configurations on the back end of that defense that I think it throws his own team into a state of chaos. Granted, they probably haven't figured out who they like at certain positions back there. So, I don't know, guys. I don't know if we shouldn't expect any different when all these roster changes are being made week after week after week. Do I think they should be made? Yeah, but it's a big problem as to why the Elks aren't having success long term. Guys, I thought Taylor Cornelius was the best player on the field for Edmonton. He gave his team a puncher's chance in a game that wasn't very close. The game plan really got thrown out the window by halftime when you're down by 30, whatever you were down there. But guys, there's a lot to like about Taylor Cornelius. Spoiler alert, I'm considering taking him in fantasy.
Well, I want to talk about Chris Jones though. We're talking as if he isn't an expert at football. Like, yeah, we can say about him, but we're looking at the schedule. Like we said, they have 1 against Saskatchewan and 2 against Ottawa. When Saskatchewan has the 2 toughest teams in the league, BC and Winnipeg, Chris Jones somehow manages to win through 2 or 3. Beats Saskatchewan and sweeps Ottawa. Like, they're fourth and they have the crossover potentially, right? In Saskatchewan. I can't see Saskatchewan going 2-2. Yeah, they might split the Bombers, but they're not going to split BC and the Bombers, I don't think. So, I don't know. I'm not as down on Chris Jones. Like, yeah, he's going to do whatever he needs to do, and he's going to reconfigure it, and then he's going to get a win and maybe against Saskatchewan and get a win against Ottawa and be in that crossover spot, and he's going to stick to the plan. It's going to work out. We have a playoff spot. You know what I mean? And Chris Jones is, maybe he won't be here for the 4 years, but I think he's going a little bit the long game here, a little bit more than let's win now. He wants to see what works. And like I said, he's got a couple of games here against some teams that they do have a chance against winning. And I'm not as down on Edmonton as, they're 2 and whatever, but they're in the West Division, and the West Division of the CFL is like the AL East in baseball, right? Like, it's insane. Or the NL West. Like, it's teams that beat up on each other, like the Dodgers, Padres, and the other one, I can't think of it right now. The Giants. There we go. Teams that just beat up on each other, and whoever comes out of it's going to be your Grey Cup winner or your World Series winner, right? And Edmonton's just unfortunately is the whatever teams in the NL West that sucks, like Arizona. You know what I mean? And they could be a good team, and they could they could swing in at the end and get a wild card spot, and you never know what happens, right? So I'm not too down on Edmonton. The next few weeks will be telling, I think.
My concern, and I guess it could be a positive though too, is that most of the games down the stretch are divisional matchups. They haven't won a game against the West Division yet. They've got 2 wins against the East, but they haven't been able to win those games. So if you can't deliver on those, you're not going to make your way up the standings. If they can turn it around and all of a sudden put it together, well, then that's the other side of the sword, right? It gives them a chance to make their way easily up the standings a little bit. So we'll see what's coming up here down the stretch for Edmonton, Mike.
One really quick comment before we move on to the betting segment of the show. It's Adam's comment in here. He said, "All I know is a frustrated Jones makes happy Rider fan." I don't know what it is. There's a German word, and Ryan, you might know what this is. It's Schadenfreude. People have a lot of that, and it's taking joy in the misfortune of others is the best English definition. I don't know why but Rider fans have a lot of Schadenfreude when it comes to Chris Jones. And it's time for our everybody's favorite segment of the show, where the jury comes out as far as our betting picks.
Yeah, our betting results this week are brought to you by BetStamp. There's so many different sports books out there these days, and each one offers you different prices on the same games. How do you ensure you're getting the best value? Well, BetStamp provides you the info you need at no additional cost. All you do is you pull up a game on the app, see the odds offered by each of their different sportsbook affiliates for that game, and place the bet that will maximize the return for the pick you are making. Find some odds you like. You can sign up straight through their BetStamp Bet link page. And if you want some extra insight before you place your wagers, you can see what experts around the field are picking on each game as well. You can find us, the Canadian Football Countdown. I think you can find Trey over there as well on the commission-free BetStamp Marketplace. See our picks that we make on our preview show every week. And through the BetStamp verified bet tracking, you get the guarantee that the odds others have picked on are verified and legitimate. Visit betstamp.app today or download the free apps from the App Store. Sign up with referral code CFC to start using BetStamp for free. And best of luck with your wagers. And remember, always bet responsibly. Now we turn things over to the resident betting expert of the Canadian Football Countdown, Trey. We had a wager this week on this one, you and I. I challenged you for the title here. Say if I could beat you in betting this week, I would get the title. Well, over to you. It's still you, man.
Hey, yeah, you got me in fantasy, though. So I think that we have our titles right. And Mike's the key holder, and Adam's the farmer who talks to gophers and everything to get his picks, right? But real quick, let's talk about BetStamp. I really like this app. So taking a quick look here, since we joined, the show is 5-3 because we go on collective basis, and you and Adam always go the same. So I don't even matter what I say. And technically, the show's got an 18.4% return on investment. So we're making money, right? That's the main point, making money. And if I look at myself, 6-2, 43% return on investment. If I do $25 bets on here, so net $86 if you followed me along. So, don't bet the farm, but, put a little bit of down and you're making some coffee money. But going to the actual picks. First game of the week, we all took Winnipeg -5.5 over Montreal. I was nervous at halftime. I didn't know what was going on, but I should have known Janarian Grant would get a 55-yard or 60-yard punt return, and the defense would take over. We all got that one right. You guys actually agreed with me on one, but I guess it's hard to go against an undefeated team. Now, the bet. This is where the bet all started from Friday night game. Ryan had the great idea that Ottawa was not only going to cover, but they were going to outright win. Yeah. Can we take them off the screen for a second? No, they didn't do that. Again, it was an interesting game. You guys took +5.5. I took Calgary -5. What can I say? You don't bet against Bo. I don't know why you guys try. Well, whatever. We digress. But, going to the first game on Saturday, you followed along me, Ryan. Adam, I don't know what those Gophers are smoking in Saskatchewan. They said Hamilton is going to cover +2.5. That's close enough to a pick 'em. Again, Toronto, the Boatmen, they another game that was kind of close at halftime and had me a little bit shaken. But like I said in our group chat, second half comeback, boys. And, the rest is history. So at this point, I went 3-0. Ryan's 2-1. Adam, unfortunately, 1-2 at this point, but we all did fine. We all took BC -10, and like Chris says, he took it +30, or -30, and we should have taken it -30. Wonder how much that would have paid off. And the BC Lions won that one handily. So we do have a new person in second place, though, in the standings. Ryan moves up to 20-15 on the season. Adam, 19-16, still making money, but that 500 line is a creeping. So, I hope that he doesn't have to sell the tractor to pay off some of these gambling debts if he, keeps this way going. And the resident betting expert, 22-13, 13-3 in the last 4 weeks, boys. Never been done before by me. Like I says, I've never had a perfect weekend. I think I've had 2 or 3 since joining the show. I love it. I have actually had to try and think about it a little bit now. And yeah. And if I had my horse racing winnings today, it's actually not a bad weekend. I'll take it.
You can't make this up that the week I deferred, the guy, me, who knows nothing about betting, tries to wager Trey for the title of resident betting expert. And of course he would go 4-0 on the week. And if I've learned anything this week, it's 2 things. 3 things. Never disagree with Trey. If I make a bet with Trey, I'm never going to rely on the Ottawa Red Blacks to deliver me the victory in that bet ever again. And the third thing that I truly don't understand the spread, and I really should agree with you guys, because on that BC-Edmonton game, I was leaning Edmonton, but only took BC because I know how inadequately inept I am at picking the spread. So I'm happy I listened to you guys on that one.
Yeah, and we're going to have a good week. I was kind of telling you guys about some of the opening lines. A big one opened up, Winnipeg, Montreal. I think it was 13 points. Hopefully that gets a little smaller by Thursday. Toronto and Hamilton was almost a pick 'em. BC, Calgary was almost a pick 'em. And I texted Adam in our group chat, Saskatchewan's favored by 6. I don't know about that one. They came off a bye. Yes, Chris, who told you to bet on no one better bet on Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving? I'm sorry. That is the stupidest thing you could ever do. If there's one thing to bet the farm on, it's probably the Detroit Lions winning on Thanksgiving. No, I'm just kidding. Don't ever do that. Oh man, I'm excited for NFL betting too, but different show. Maybe I'll have to talk to our college guy, Brandon, and get some college NFL going. But I'm excited, guys. It's been a good time, but I don't know if I can do it again this week. This weekend looks tough, but I said that last weekend, so I don't know.
I'd have the TV network if you boys want to do that said show. Get a hold of me. Something I've been looking at for a while. Really quickly, just to move on for our other fantasy leads. Somebody else will have a very good week here shortly. In the CFL CFTN podcast fantasy lead, Ryan has defeated Trey in CFC Civil War version 3. Ryan improves to 8-1, while Trey falls to 5-4.
Did point correction come out yet? So that's official. I don't know about CFL. I know point correction doesn't happen until Tuesday in the NFL, right? So,
are you asking for a recount of the votes here, Trey?
The other one is Adam defeats Mike from Potsy Wee Wee and improves to 4-5. You can follow all the results on Twitter at CFL Pod Fantasy on Twitter. Check out all the other great podcasts involved.
I want to mention, so I beat Trey in that. So our other wager last week on the preview show was Trey decided we're challenging one another in fantasy this week. And if Trey beats me, he gets to lead the fantasy segment on this Wednesday's show. I beat Trey by 2 points this week? And it is the luckiest win I have ever had in CFL fantasy. I took Caleb Evans, I took Jalen Acklin. Those both dropped duds. Those were both useless for me. I originally had Keon Hatcher in the Argos defense in my lineup. I decided last minute to switch it for Kai Loxley in the Lions, and Loxley only put up a point or two. Literally all Trey needed was a Keon Hatcher catch in the second half of the football game to beat me. And Nathan Rourke, in his 400-something yard passing game, decided to go to every other receiver in the lineup. Fantasy football is just dumb sometimes, man.
One thing, and then I'll see myself out about this. Trey, you are the resident betting expert. Ryan, you are the resident expert at overthinking. Done. I'll see myself out.
It's true. It's true.
I thought I had to with that running back, though, man. That last second Edmonton switch, I threw that guy in, the leader, however you say it. And then he didn't even go on the field in the second half either. I needed him to get a carry. And yeah, how do you not throw to Hatcher in 30 minutes of football? I'm just losing my mind. It's 11 to midnight, whatever time in my apartment. I'm sure my neighbor's a cool guy. I'm glad that he doesn't call. I hear him yelling, playing at the video games. He hears me yelling about fantasy and point spreads, right? So it's a good relationship at my apartment here in Winnipeg. But man, that was the most NFL-like fantasy I've ever had. I never really paid attention too close. I'm doing math. I'm doing counting. It was unreal, man. But Ryan, you got me, man. But I think it was 2.4 or 2.5, something like that. Footsteps. I'll see you at the playoffs, baby. I'll see you in playoffs.
Great matchup all the way around. It was a fun one this week,
It
Trey.
reminds me of being in a Pittman NFL pool, quick story, and there was that Monday Night Football game that involved somebody, and I needed a touchdown at the last minute. I think it involved the Buffalo Bills, and Josh Allen fumbled on the 2-yard line to diminish my pool winnings for that week. So that's my extent of feeling you guys' pain from time to time. Kind of talking about pain. This has to be brought up in our CFL CFC podcast lead that we have. Week 9 totals are in. Trey had 43.1 points. Adam had 51.6 points this week. Ryan had 97.6, most of which was off the back of Nathan Ward. I had the week high total of 115.7. Fairly large performances from Dominic Grimes, Calgary Stamp's defense, and Dalton Schoen, if my memory serves me correctly. You guys have thoughts and opinions before I run through the overall total, where there has been a bit of a shift.
I just want to tell you guys and Adam, Zach Collaros is available for the next 3 years of first-round draft picks. That's my price right now. Might could be negotiated, but I think we're in selling mode right now. So you got a couple first-round draft picks and you want to go all in this year. Zach Collaros and a couple other guys are on the table. Just so you guys know.
As the official owner of Nathan Rourke in our fantasy league, this is a keeper league, right? Right, guys? Keeper league for next year.
I'm giving up draft picks. I just want to pick draft picks next year, guys. It's going to be, oh, look, Trey's picking again. Oh, Trey, you're up. Oh, Trey, you're up for the next 3, 4, 5 years right now. Because I won't bet the farm, but I'll sell the farm to you guys right now.
I would probably make that deal for 2 first-rounders, but not 3, Trey. Well, I'll get back to you on that. I'm still looking for a fairly reliable quarterback. But that can be said. And by the way, I have offered you multiple trades, which you have turned down.
Nobody tries harder to make a trade than Mike, okay? Mike tries. Every week, Mike's out here putting up new trade offers out there. Nobody's yet to accept them.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right?
My difficulty set to high.
Yeah.
My difficulty set to high.
Sorry?
Wait, my trade difficulty set to high. If you guys have ever played Monopoly in me, I am the worst guy to play against because I'll get the blues. I'll get Boardwalk in the other one, guys, 100%. And no, you're done. It's done.
Season totals quickly, Ryan at 870.8. I have moved into second place at 776.5. Adam is in third place at 763.6, and Trey is last at 587.2. Sad trombone music.
That's I'm swimming in all that money I'm making, boys. I'm swimming in all that money. It doesn't matter. I can't hear you can't hear nothing in that pool right now. I'm like Scrooge McDuck. That's all.
I gotta laugh at the comment here from Adam's here in the YouTube chat and says Mike wins the CFC fantasy this week. Ryan wins in the CFL podcast fantasy Civil War. Trey wins money in betting, and I win because the Riders didn't play this week. From our resident Rider fan himself.
That's excellent. Quickly, guys, let's move on. As soon as I can get my screen to function to players of the week, I'll just do Adam's player of the week really quickly. He chose Dominic Rhymes, for 9 catches on 9 targets for 91 yards and 3 touchdowns. Not much more needs to be said about that performance. And the amazing part, all of those 3 touchdowns were in the first quarter. My player of the week, a little bit off the board. I went with Cam Phillips of the Toronto Argonauts. 8 catches, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, a 21.3 yard average. These guys did not see my pick anyway prior to the show, so this is news to them. That's my pick for player of the week. Ryan, we should have seen this coming. You didn't need to be first in the chat. We always know that as the Nathan Rourke Hall of Fame campaign manager, I'm going to get you to gush about your player of the week for another minute, just one last time.
Yeah, well, I had to send it super quick because I saw Adam typing earlier today, and ain't nobody going to take Nathan Rourke from me for player of the week. He's been my player of the week 3 times, I think, now this season, and I expect many more to come, and he continues to play better and better every single time. 5 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown on the ground, 477 yards, I think, broke his previously set record for most passing yards in a game by a Canadian. 91% completion percentage. I think that's 3rd best in CFL history. If he didn't end up somewhere on these players of the week, I think we could just cancel this podcast going forward. So I'm here to put him there, get us renewed for another episode coming on Wednesday.
How much are they paying you to be the president of the Nathan Rourke Club, man? Like, is...
No, this is all free will, man. This is all free will.
The endorsement deals would be so big, Ryan, you could probably retire right now. New to the game, an injury replacement, but a pretty darn good performance when the rest of the team didn't carry the mail or carry the ball. No pun intended. This is where we go for Trey's player of the week.
Yeah, it was an interesting week. It was tough games to go from. I knew Ryan was going to go Nathan Rourke. I never know what Mike and Adam are going to do. But yeah, Dedrick Mills, 100 yards right on the century mark. Oddly enough, no touchdowns, but, he didn't need to get in the end zone. He, when you have Bo Levi, throwing 13 completions, guess you got to run the ball for 100 yards. So, it's hard to go against the guy there. In a team with Bo Levi, you don't usually see a guy go for that many yards, but he did it, and he... in a weird game with Calgary, Ottawa, I'm going to give him the player of the game. Honorable mention, Janarian Grant, Winnipeg. He's unreal. I've been saying, you guys need to sit next to me because I whispered to my girlfriend, he's going to go for one big, and she has no idea what I'm talking about. She's a new football expert. I say, the guy with the dreads, he's going to run a lot, and he's going to get us points. And she's like, oh, okay. And he starts doing that. Kickoff return, and a punt return. Now he's on the offense. Matt, he's another guy that some team's going to probably pay $200,000-$300,000 for. What's up with the guys in dreadlocks, man? They're always so fast, and it's great. And I love seeing those dreads flow. Janarian Grant, man, is my honorable mention.
Boys, we have history on this show. In what form, you might ask? Well, to slide into the power rankings section, I did not make a change to my power rankings at all this week. They remain exactly as they were last week with Winnipeg, BC, Calgary, Toronto, Hamilton, Saskatchewan, Edmonton, Montreal, Ottawa. I think the order is self-explanatory if you've been listening to this show for the last hour and a half. Now, Ryan, explain to us your rationale for your power rankings.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would be surprised to see Winnipeg, BC, Calgary be my top 3 in that order yet again after what we've seen the past couple of weeks. Saskatchewan was on a bye week, so I couldn't move them, so they stay at number 4. I moved Toronto up to 5 because credit to them for the big second half comeback there. Also, they play Hamilton a number of times the next few weeks, and They've already got one up on them there. I have Hamilton at the other side of it at number 6. Montreal at 7 for me. I'm still not high on Montreal, but I do have to put them ahead of Ottawa, who just did not look good this week. And Edmonton drops back down to number 9. Yes, they have 2 wins on the season, but they're also in a tight West division, whereas all of these teams out East, well, any of them could take first place in the division here still. So that's why Edmonton ends up at number 9 after a disastrous week against the Lions.
Trey, you had the resident betting expert, as has been multiple times. Sorry, my tongue is tied. As has been said multiple times on this podcast this week, what have you clicked up for power rankings?
Why, thank you, Mike. Well, yeah, top 3. It's really the top 3 is pretty set in stone, And I'm going to have Toronto in 4th. I'm a little higher on Toronto. I obviously, I don't think they're going to be any higher than 4 right now, but they have a couple of games here against Hamilton to really take a hold of that and say, you know what, there's going to be 3 teams in the East that suck, but we're going to be all right. So that's why they're there. Montreal too, they kept up with Winnipeg, so I'm giving them a little bit of benefit. Hamilton, I'm not sold on Hamilton and Edmonton. And now it's Saskatchewan here. I got a question for Adam, because he was the one that put them 8th last week. So how did they move up to 4th without playing a game? That's my big question to Adam in the chat, unless he told us, because they haven't played a game. So I think I have them 8th, and they're going to remain at 8th. And Ottawa's Ottawa right now until things change.
And of course, if you want to get Adam's rankings, well, Mike, you can give us Adam's rankings here right away, but you can ask him about it on Twitter at AdamStewart1.
Also, another good reason to tune in on Wednesday night, where this debate is going to go back and forth and fast and furious. Well, for Adam's power rankings, they are pretty much the same. I think we had the same top 3 in that order. He goes Saskatchewan at 4, Toronto at 5, Hamilton at 6, Ottawa at 7, Montreal at 8, and Edmonton at 9. My early guess for why he puts Saskatchewan at 4, and I don't know this for a fact, but if I had to guess the way he was thinking, is just that his feelings weren't hurt this week, and that deserves to be at the top of recognition. Who knows? Adam, I absolutely adore you as a person. I do not mean ill will for you. I just find you very comical. And this kind of made my day. And by the way, he put something very interesting in our chat where we put our rankings. He happened to put a bunch of university teams on that list, which I couldn't quite fit in to here. Boy, keep your head on a swivel when it comes to Stewart's power rankings. Might just be a segment on his own. You can find him on Twitter at AdamStewart1, as Ryan has said. Yeah, pretty much, guys. I think we're starting to get some separation when it comes to the power rankings, at least a little bit here as well. So that takes care of that. Thank you, Mr. Automatic, for removing the graphic. As we wrap things up here on our Week 8 recap, let's take a look at what's coming up. Week 9. My script didn't update there properly. My apologies. Week 9 recap, let's take a look at what's coming up next on the podcast. Week 10 preview will be this Wednesday, where bets and pleasantries, maybe it's changed. You can find out all that information and more. 9 p.m. Winnipeg time, 8 p.m. Saskatchewan. Adjust your other time zones accordingly. And maybe listening to us from across the sea. I don't know how you quite do that, if it's middle of the night here or how that works, but hi to our esteemed podcast listeners overseas who we seem to be pretty big in certain places. And then the Week 10 recap will come up next Monday, 9 p.m. Winnipeg time, 8 p.m. Saskatchewan time for that as well. You can catch all these shows and more every week on YouTube. You can search the Canadian Football Countdown, facebook.com/CFC Countdown Pod, on Twitter at CF Countdown Pod, on Twitch, twitch.tv/CFC Countdown Pod, as well as on the Game Time TV YouTube page. All made possible thanks to our presenting sponsored Game Time TV. You can learn more about upcoming events, facebook.com/Game Time TVMB, or by visiting watch.gametimetv.ca. Want to follow us on social media? As mentioned, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at CF Countdown Pod, where you can find might be a little bit bias here. Some of the best show promos in the entire CFPN, just based on, I don't know, personal experiences that happen to get retweeted, such as mine this morning. All seriousness, we love the Twitter engagement. Keep it up as well. You can check out all the other great shows as well by visiting Twitter, or on Twitter while you're on Twitter, by finding CF Pod Network on Twitter for all the other great shows as well. Just before we wrap things up, let's get a closing comment from the rest of our panel, starting with the guy on my left, Ryan Coop.
Yeah, fun week of CFL talk here. Looking forward to the Wednesday night show for sure. It should be a lot of fun there. If you want to talk more CFL Fantasy with me, I had a couple fun conversations around that on Twitter, around the pick of Caleb Evans this week. I stand by it, even though it didn't work out. You can follow me on Twitter at CooperTrooper42. It starts with a K if you want to talk anything CFL related there. I want to give a quick shout out to our good friend Rod over from the Wood Cookie Sawcast, part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network, who did unfortunately announce today that the Wood Cookie Sawcast is officially ending. Rod has many different projects over on his plate, and full respect to him for making the decision. I know it wasn't an easy one for him, and the Wood Cookie Sawcast has been a great part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Rod's been a friend of the show. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's played in our fantasy leagues, etc. So wish him nothing but the best. Hope we see him around the CFL circles still. And make sure you go check out everything else he's got going on. He's a busy man. Lots of writing, lots of podcasting, anything and everything pretty much, at RJ Villagomez on Twitter. So shout out to you, Rod. Happy to know you and wish you all the best.
Really quick on Rod, if you want a good laugh, check out him and his visit with Ryan and I on the free agency special we did last year. Near the end of the day, to be honest, I was getting a little tired. Rod comes on the show and he is like a firecracker of energy, but sets all of our energy right back up. He's like that guy that comes with the jumper cables and puts them on the battery and gets everybody else going. That was him. All the best to Rod as well. Sorry, Trey, I have to cut you off here really quickly because we got some breaking news here, but I want to slide in quickly. Trey Roberson is done for the season in Calgary. That was announced. He had surgery. The injury sustained in the Winnipeg game. Quickly, Trey, and then we'll go to Ryan quickly. Just reaction to that news. Unfortunate for the Stamps.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, especially when the Stamps are in such a tight race with BC and Winnipeg, missing out on starters. But like I always say, next man, hey, thoughts and prayers to him, speedy recovery. We don't want to ever see anyone go down. And sometimes in sports, we might overlook injuries a little bit because they're so common. But again, next man up when it comes up to it. So whoever's replacement is better. I'm sure they're going to perform. It's still Calgary. It's still Huffnagel's team, right? He's kind of, I'd put him the closest to Belichick in the CFL, where it doesn't they could lose guys and he'll replace them. But thoughts and speedy recovery to Trey. We got it. We're named twins, right? I got all the peace and love with him, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't disagree on anything you said there. I think you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, hope for a recovery for him. Hope for a speedy recovery for Braylon Addison as well, who had a rough injury. You hate seeing the stars of the league go down. Tough blow for the Stampeders, but without him this week, they still shut down the Red Blacks offense pretty much completely. So next man up, indeed. I think they've got guys that can step in there. We'll see what that brings for the Stampeders here going forward. But I guess over to you, Trey. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, boys, real quick. I know this has already been a long show, but if you want to see me do what I normally do, in August 27th, that's tentative. We're still waiting for a new track to be fully formed, and I'm not supposed to overly advertise it yet. But if you're in the Winnipeg area and you're around the Red River X, come check out Harness Racing Returns after 27 years to Winnipeg. I'm the announcer, so we want to talk about jumper cables. I usually have about 2 or 3 Red Bulls before I get to the booth. So if you think I'm messed up now, see me after 2 or 3 Red Bulls on a Saturday. And Labor Day weekend, as again tentative, there's supposed to be there's the fall fair at the Red River X, kind of the mini Red River X fair. We're supposed to have 2 days of racing there. Could be a great time. Again, if you want to check out Harness Racing, you want to come see me do my thing, that's where you are. It should be live streamed if you can't make it to the city. Follow me at Trey MB Harness if you want to find all that. Follow me there if you want to see me brag about my other big winnings in horse racing today. Just shy of $1,000, man. I'm so mad. And 13-3. That's where you're gonna find me. And at Trey MB Harness. Oh, Trey CF Countdown on our new sponsors, BetStamp. You can check that out. And I think it was CF Countdown Pod is our whole one. So, again, usually the CFL Pod, it's what Ryan and Adam go with because they always vote against me. So if you want to see my picks, that's Trey CFL, our CF podcast. So, there we go, boys.
Really quickly, Adam might be turning into the resident zinger when it comes to the comments. He always had one that is topping everybody else, and this one is the best. If you build it, Trey will call, and in brackets, the race. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Garrow. You can find out everything about Game Time in the next couple of weeks. We're excited to release broadcast schedules. Finally, getting somewhere with that. It's been a bit of a challenge. I just want to wish all the best of luck to Winnipegger Carson Lambos. This has nothing to do with the podcast. Him and Team Canada will start their run at the summer edition of the World Junior Hockey Championship in Edmonton. The tournament starts tomorrow. Canada's first game on Wednesday night. Did they look good in a pre-tournament game against Sweden tonight? But let's throw the real bullets in the data. It starts tomorrow across your television set. Canada's first game is on Wednesday. That is it for me. That is it for my closing. I don't know if either of you has anything quickly to add or not. Nope. Okay, we're good there. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Whatever podcast platform you're watching or listening on, whether it's now live or after the fact, we really, really appreciate it. Also, special shout out to those of you in the comments. You are what makes the show what it is. I know I speak for Ryan, for Trey, and for Adam. We love doing this show, not just for ourselves, but to have that engagement with you as we're doing these shows just makes it that much more fun. I'll be honest, guys, I was hoping for a short show, but every time I say it's going to be short, an hour and 15 minutes, it is, but it's fun to do every week. You guys will be nothing but amazing on Wednesday's show, like always. So once again, if you want to like more of our content or you want to find more, you can find all of us on our personal Twitter accounts. Adam is at Adam Stewart 1. You can also comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. And we always appreciate that. On behalf of Trey Colbert and Ryan Coop, this is Michael Gale saying thank you for listening and for watching. Thanks for making us part of your Monday. And the rest of the boys will talk to you on Wednesday. I'll be back next week to recap what may be a crazy or a not so crazy week. Stay tuned, everybody. Have a great week. We'll chat next week or on Wednesday.